Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what is going on?
I'm here, man.
I like it when you're here. It makes the show easier.
It helps.
Because sometimes when you're not here and I have to run around
And do your Gibby voice?
and play both voices,
makes it rough.
it's hard on me, man.
Wouldn't it be funny if people found out that actually this is just one person?
I'm doing both voices,
Or I'm doing both voices? If we already didn't give it away at CrimeCon.
that there was actually two of
Yeah.
us. All right, Gibbs, we got to say up front, we're doing something different. It's Halloween coming up.
Yeah, as you pointed out, I keep thinking this is dropping Halloween Eve, but you corrected me already, and Halloween Eve.
Eve.
Yeah, double Eve.
And we wanted to do something different. We wanted to connect True Crime All the Time and True Crime All the Time Unsolved. And I'm saying it up front, even before we get into Patreon, because in this episode, we're talking about the Amityville horror. But True Crime All the Time, which is out right now, is actually connected. It's all about the Defeo murders that occurred in the house that ultimately becomes the scene for the Amityville horror, the haunting, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
So if you haven't listened to that one, I would suggest listening to that one first.
Stop now.
Stop now. Stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin.
Oh, my gosh.
I went old school on you there.
You did.
No, I mean, you don't have to. The episodes will stand on their own, but if you want the backstory, then listen to True Crime All the Time first. All right, Gibbs, so let's do our Patreon shout-outs. We have Angela Reynolds, Donna, just Donna, Suzanne Robertson, Lindsay Kane, Jeanette Rifkin, no relation.
She's glad of that.
And she actually came out at our highest level, so we appreciate that.
That's cool.
We have Beatrice Vasquez. It's not Vasquez, it's Vasquez. Now what, she'll say, it's actually pronounced Vasquez.
Yeah, she will.
She won't, but...
If she's Team Gibby, she will.
It's Leanne Seeley, Rory Lee from Ireland, because I talked to Rory the other day.
Hey, lad, how you doing?
And I talked to him through Facebook, but his typing didn't sound anything like that.
Yeah, you can't figure that out, can you, through typing?
I guarantee he doesn't sound anything like that.
About, hey, mates. No. That's wrong.
He doesn't sound like
wrong country.
Drunken Jamaican pirate.
Yeah. I have to work on this. I'm really good when we're not recording, and I'm not here. I'm in my car driving.
Would you do a bunch of impersonations while you're driving?
I do, yeah. Other people out there do, too. I know they do.
All right, so let's go back into the vault. And this week, Gibbs, I picked Kurt Brzezinski. You know, Kurt's been with us a long time. We appreciate all the support that he's given us over, all these many months.
Hanging with us.
And interesting story. Last week in the vault, we picked Janet Harp. And Janet's listening because she's a Patreon supporter. And what does she do? She ups her pledge, jumps up to our highest level. I mean, it was very nice. It was just amazing. I mean, people don't They probably don't believe me, but I tell them all the time, it doesn't matter how much you give. It's just amazing the fact that people are willing to support what we're doing. And we appreciate everyone, regardless of the level and regardless of whether they're Patreons or not, right? We have Facebook friends that are out there touting the show. That's amazing. We have a lot of people now on Twitter are starting to retweet us. That is great. So keep that up.
Keep the tweets going.
The more, the better on that. You know, sharing posts on Facebook. A lot of people talking about us in their Instagram stories, which is very cool. So like we mentioned, we talked about the Defeo murders on True Crime All the Time. And for those of you that don't want to jump over, I want to give a brief synopsis because I think it's important to the story that we're about to tell. It's going to be very brief. So you had Ronald Defeo shot and killed 6 members of his family in 1974. This was in Amityville, New York. He walked into his parents' bedroom, shot them while they were asleep in their bed, proceeded to kill his 2 brothers and then his 2 sisters, all while they were in their bedrooms as well. And these murders occurred at the Defeo house, which was located at 112 Ocean Avenue. And the house, Gibbs, had a sign out front which read High Hopes. You know how some people like name their house?
Hi ho.
High Hopes.
High hopes.
High Hopes, which is kind of tragically ironic, I guess is the way I would put it.
Or ironically tragic.
Yeah, actually that's probably better.
Yeah.
Good correction. But we're going to be talking a lot about this 112 Ocean Avenue in this episode. I mean, you could say that this house becomes a character in this whole story. It's not so much a character in the murders, but it becomes a character after the murders and what transpires afterwards. So police finally figured out that it was Ronnie Defeo Jr. that committed the murders, killed his entire family. You know, they charged him, but during the trial, his defense attorney tried to enter an insanity plea. And Butch, he went by Butch, he gets on the stand, he talks to the jurors about hearing voices. And these voices told him to murder his family. Now, the jury didn't buy it. They ended up convicting him, and he was sentenced to 6 life sentences. So this is where we would usually wrap, right? I mean, this would be the shortest episode in the history of True Crime All the Time if it were to end here, but we know it doesn't because this episode's not about the murders. It's all about what happened afterwards. We're talking about the Amityville horror / haunting, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this is one of the most famous haunting cases in the world. There's been so much about it in the media, books, movies. We're going to talk about all of it.
Certainly well marketed.
I would say that's true. Well marketed. And we're going to talk about that maybe a little bit too. But I want to start off talking a little bit about the village of Amityville, New York. It was settled in the 1600s. It would become incorporated as the village of Amityville in 1894. And this was a place that started out as a farming community. There was a heavy emphasis on fishing and boating, marine industries. But over time, Amityville becomes more of what you'd call like a summer getaway type of place because there's hotels springing up. And this is where the farms and the marine industries had once been located along the waterfront. Amityville becomes a place for the rich and famous coming from New York City to travel to Amityville for the summer to vacay. People like Annie Oakley back in the day. It shows you how far it goes back. Annie Oakley was said to have visited Amityville frequently.
And Annie, you know, she was just from, you know, near where we live.
But she's a straight shooter.
She's a straight shooter too.
Annie, get your gun.
Yeah. But yeah, she was just lived up the road.
Did she?
Up in Greenville.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And none other than Al Capone had a house there.
AC,
the original OG. Or, I don't guess you have to say original because that's in the...
He would just be the
OG.
G. You know, the OG, he's just the G.
It's kind of redundant if you say original OG, isn't it? Because O stands for original.
That's something I would normally say.
I'm making fun of myself, man.
That's good.
I was waiting for you to do it, but you're not fast enough, so I
I already knew he was just the G.
So in 1924, a family of 6 by the name of the Moynahans, they buy a property at 112 Ocean Avenue. And there was a little house there. And they relocated that house because they wanted to build a bigger house. And this is what they built. They built the iconic house that would later become infamous as the Amityville house. So that's how old it was. It was built in 1924. Various members of that family lived in the house until 1960. And it was then that one of the daughters sold the house to a couple, John and Mary Riley. And the Rileys lived in the house for about 5 years until they got divorced. So this is 1965. And this is the year that Ronald and Louise Defeo bought the house at 112 Ocean Avenue. And we know that didn't turn out well because the murders occurred in 1974. So the family lived there for about 9 years up until the point where the son, Ronnie Defeo Jr., murdered the entire family. Now, after the murder, the house would be vacant for over a year until it was purchased by another family in December of 1975. And this would be Geroge and Kathy Lutz. And they got a pretty good deal on this house, Gibbs.
Yeah, 80 grand, right?
About 80 grand they paid for. I mean, we're talking a 4,000 square foot Dutch colonial house. It's on the water. It's got a swimming pool. It has a boathouse. This was a nice house.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be like 250,000 today. So
would it?
Well, probably more than that actually, because it's only 30 minutes outside New York. So you're probably looking about probably over $1 million today.
I don't think you can use the same type of Gibby formula.
No, you got to accelerate it up, man.
Right.
So I'm going to say it's over $1 million.
Well, you're actually really spot on.
How you like that?
Pretty close, and you'll find out later why.
Okay.
But so 80 grand. Now, why did they get such a good deal for it? Number one, 6 people were murdered in this house.
I wouldn't want to be in it. I don't care. Ain't no way.
Now, on top of that, at trial, Ronnie Defeo starts talking about the fact that he heard voices.
The house made me do it.
The house made him do it. He heard voices in the house. So George Lutz would say in an interview that he and Kathy had probably looked at about 50 houses before they settled on the house on Ocean Drive. He also said that the realtor that showed them the house said, and this is a quote, "I don't know if I should tell you now or after you've seen the house, but this is the house that the Defeo murders took place in." Now, Kathy and George both claimed that they had no idea prior to this point, prior to the realtor telling them this, that this was the house, the Defeo house. But once she told them, they said they remembered the case because this was all over the news. It had only been the year before. It had been widely covered in the newspapers, on television news. And they also said they were actually under contract on another house before they saw this one, but that contract fell through. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because these statements made by George and Kathy, they're very interesting in light of the public opinion and the things that are going to come out about them after the haunting allegations. So, I mean, I want to bring that up, that they kind of go out of their way to say, we didn't know that this was the Defeo house when we went to look at it. Another thing that I think is important, George and Kathy, this wasn't their first marriage. They had actually just married the year before. So they move into the house with their family, but they would only live in this house at 112 Ocean Avenue for 28 days. 28 days, Gibbs. And we're going to talk about why that is.
A short period of time, man.
That's a short period of time to live in a new house.
It's just 2 days short of the whole 30.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
But it's really the story that would come out from George and Kathy Lutz about why they left the house after 28 days. That's what's going to captivate the world.
I've been out on day 2.
Would you? Well, you scare easily.
I do, man.
You're spooked easily.
When you get that hair standing up on the back of your neck.
You're like Scooby-Doo. Boom! Scooby and Shaggy.
It's time to shave it.
And their story starts really, just after moving into this house. Because what George later says is that a friend of his, when he found out that they had purchased this house, where the Defeos had been murdered, he told George that he should get the house blessed by a priest. Now, George wasn't Catholic, but he had been married to a woman who was Catholic just a few years earlier. This timing is kind of strange because I don't think he had been divorced very long when he married Kathy. But George meets with the priest, who he called Father Ray, and they discussed how the blessing of the house would work. So Father Ray shows up at the house just as the family is moving in, and he goes inside. He's going to bless the house. And after a while, he comes out and tells George that he felt something very strange in one of the upstairs rooms. And this wasn't a room that George and Kathy planned on using as a bedroom. They told the priest this, and he said, good. As long as no one sleeps in this room, it should be okay.
Just don't sleep there.
Just don't sleep there.
Don't take any naps.
Something freaky going on, but as long as you're not sleeping there.
You come up and read. You want to sit there and
you can do Zumba.
Do your Zumba. You probably do Zumba.
I do Zumba.
You look like you do Zumba.
Anybody that's seen me knows I don't do Zumba.
So I'm guessing George's stepfather's kind of digging this. I think he's kind of, maybe he might be liking this because, you know, he dabbled a little bit in the occult.
I did not know that. That's weird, wild stuff.
So he's probably like looking forward to coming over and having family events there.
He might have been.
So he can do his Ouija board.
You ever do a Ouija board?
I would never touch the thing.
You never have?
No.
Oh, man, I did one time as a kid. Scared the shit out of me.
You just don't know what you're going to invite in, man.
Maybe I invited something in.
Got to be careful, man.
I invited you in tonight.
Yeah. Well, that was a mistake a long time ago.
There was no Ouija board involved.
Yeah, it was a different type of Ouija board.
So the first night in the new house for the Lutz family was said to have been pretty uneventful. The only thing that George really talks about in regards to that first night was that he had a really hard time getting warm. But he would say in later interviews that, you know, he chalked this up to having worked outside all day in some chilly conditions. But over their time in the house, and it's a short time, 28 days, George is going to become obsessed with the fireplace and trying to stay warm.
Confusion, anger misplaced because I would direct it at Kathy for no reason. Moodiness. I lost 20, 25 pounds there easily during that 28 days. I didn't eat. I didn't go to the office. My values were such that the only thing important was to keep warm and keep a fire going. Everything was very erratic. Our own behavior was erratic.
So you hear George talking about some of the things that are going to transpire. Gibbsy says he lost 20 to 25 pounds.
It almost sounds like an episode of Castaway.
In 28 days.
Tom Hanks loses all that weight in Castaway. He's obsessed with fire.
He was there for like years, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
right?
but it only took like 28 days to shoot the movie, so, you know. I'm sorry.
But the odd things that George and Kathy experience at first, they're kind of subtle. You know, we're talking about cold spots in certain rooms of the house. One that George talked about especially was one that he experienced in the boathouse. But the strange things that they experience, they ramp up quickly. You know, they start out subtle, they ramp up pretty quickly. I mean, remember, they're only there 28 days. George would describe hearing footsteps and noises coming from certain rooms, but when he got to that room, there was no one there. Kathy would tell a story about feeling like someone had come up behind her, wrapped their arms around her in some type of embrace. And she said she smelled what she called old lady perfume.
I know what that smells like.
Or do you?
Yeah.
What does it smell like?
Old lady's perfume. You never smelled that before?
Is that how they market it?
No, but it's just what a lot of old ladies would wear.
You have to go to a special store to get that? Or
I'll take you to the
is there a special section in
early bird dinner down at the cafeteria, man. You get a good whiff of it.
You're being awful ageist right now.
No, I'm just saying. It's not a bad smell. It's just a consistent smell.
Consistent. Has a consistency to it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with it. But one thing about Kathy is she began to age very quickly. And there were people around her that said, you know, when they looked at her, she was getting older. Like literally before their eyes, they felt like she was getting older. And this kind of ties into what she was talking about, where she felt like an older lady was spirit, ghost, whatever, was embracing her. And I think that's what she thought the connection was. So she's saying that she's experiencing physical changes. We heard George talk about the fact that, he lost 20 to 25 pounds in 28 days. That's pretty tough. I mean, even on Survivor, you might do that, I guess.
It would be rough.
It's not good for you. Shouldn't be losing like a pound a day.
Yeah, that's a really bad type of bug, man. 28 days of... I mean, you'd have to have a bad bug to lose that type of weight that fast.
He just said he wasn't eating. I mean, he wasn't thinking about that at all. And then one day they found the room, and the room was in the basement. It was first found by Kathy, according to George and Kathy. All of this is according to George and Kathy. I think everybody knows that. And George would recount that Kathy called him one day at work and said that she had found a strange room in the basement. The room was painted red, and it was located behind a bookcase. And what they would say is that this room was only big enough for about 2 people, had a very strange odor coming from the room. And they also said that when they took their dog down in the basement, they got near the room. The dog wasn't having anything to do with it. Wouldn't go in. He backed away, didn't want any part of it.
I'm telling you, animals know this stuff. So if you have a dog and he refuses to go somewhere, there's a reason why.
Get out.
Listen to the dog. Follow the dog.
I believe in dogs, man.
I'm telling you, they sense things that we can't.
Yeah, I do believe that.
So pay attention to your animals.
I thought you were going to go into, who's that guy that used to host The Price is
Bob
Right?
Barker?
I thought you were going to go into Bob Barker.
Don't
Be
forget
nice to
this.
animals.
Spade and neuter, please.
Your pets. Get a real Bob Barker thing going on right there.
And don't sell them to that guy we did last week.
Oh my gosh, no. Richard Chase?
Yeah.
Never. So George was able to get the original plans for the house and confirm that this room was not in the original plans. Now, I don't know what that means. The house was built in 1924. That's a lot of years to build a room or make some changes. So
yeah, add an addition here.
Yeah,
I
don't know how much that means. But then you get into them hearing mysterious voices in the house. They said they would enter a room and the furniture would be moved around. Like it would be in a new location. They started noticing foul odors in different parts of the house. They also said that they witnessed slime oozing out of the walls. So again, back to your statement, Gibbs, I don't know how long you're sticking with this, if all this is really happening.
I'd be out.
Like a casino dealer.
I'd be out.
Wave your hands and you're out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there, man. It gets more intense, more spooky, because George would say that he started to have some very strange thoughts that he would describe as not normal. And I think not normal is probably the understatement of the week, because as he puts it, he starts having these thoughts about what happened in the house before they lived there. So we're getting into the territory of like Ronnie Defeo Jr., the murders. It's almost like he's saying he was inside the head or inside the mind of Ronnie or Butch.
So kind of like doing the research prep work for a podcast.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Except he's living in the house and walking around almost as if he is Butch.
Which I think some podcasters would do to get a better feel for what happened back in the day.
Is that what you do? Is that how you get ready for the podcast?
No.
But he called these thoughts murderous. And like I said, he thought they were somehow connected to Butch and the murders and what had happened in the house. And now we have to talk about Jody. The youngest child was named Missy. And Missy would describe to George and Kathy that she had been talking to something, an entity, something, but she called it Jody. And Missy said that Jody could take on any shape, but that it often took the form of a large pig.
Shapeshifter.
Yeah, some spooky shit. If it was,
Shapeshifter, man.
if you thought your kid was talking to... Now, George and Kathy, I think at the time, thought that, okay, she has an imaginary friend like a lot of kids do.
Or maybe she was, I see dead people.
I think it's probably more towards that than most kids' imaginary friends.
Yeah.
Because what George and Kathy would later say is that outside of their bedroom window, one night they saw like these red eyes and they thought this was Jody trying to get in, and it scared them.
Red eyes would be a reason to be scared. It's not human.
Nope. It would scare me a little
I
bit.
don't know any humans that have red eyes. Bloodshot red eyes is one thing. Red eyes? Don't go out and have a conversation. Stay in.
And so now we get to the final night of the family staying in the house at 112 Ocean Avenue. And George has described this a lot in detail. And he says, I was in bed. Everyone else was asleep. All of a sudden, Kathy lifts off the bed, like levitating off the bed.
Yeah.
Starts to slide away from the bed and away from him. And then he says, I feel something get in the bed with us. I'm unable to move. And I can hear the kids continually slamming up and down on the floor and being dragged. That'd be scary.
Be really scary.
The lights begin flickering. And he talks about the fact that they had brought the dog up, was in the bedroom. They tied him to the doorknob so he would stay in the bedroom, I guess. I don't know why you just don't shut the door, but
It's kind of weird.
it's a little strange. But apparently the dog was up. He's going in circles. He was throwing up all night.
That tells you something. If your dog's doing that, get him and go.
I would agree with the dog. I mean, that sounds like a Saturday night for you, but
But me going in circles and throwing up?
yeah. But for a dog, that means something.
Yeah, but I'm having fun.
If you're doing that, I just think, that's just Gibbs.
Let's just having fun.
He'll be all right. And then George goes on to say that the next morning, the boys wake up, they start to come down, they're absolutely frightened, and as they tried to walk down the stairs, they were blocked by something invisible. Like they literally couldn't walk down the stairs, according to George.
Real force field.
And he couldn't get up the stairs to them. There was something blocking the path. And Kathy would say she had no memory of the night before whatsoever. Didn't know she was levitating and moving around and all that. But that was it for the Lutzes. They fled the house January 14th, 1976, 28 days, like we said. And then in comes Ed and Lorraine Warren. And Ed and Lorraine, they were a husband and wife team of paranormal investigators, demonologists. They were kind of investigating the occult type stuff. And George and Kathy had contacted them after fleeing the home, but they did this kind of in concert with the local news. The Warrens first entered the house on February 24th, 1976. So this was more than a month after George and Kathy left.
So they heard the whole story and the backstory.
Yep.
And they said, honey, get your sleeping bag. We're going in.
We better go check it out.
We're going to spend the night.
Well, I don't think they spent the night the first time.
Yeah, but we're going to go there. We're going to go in there. We're going to spend some time in this house.
Yeah. On the 24th of February, they went in for an initial investigation. And Ed Warren would say in a later interview, he was down in the basement, and it was if he was standing underneath a waterfall, and the pressure was driving him down to the floor. And he said, I commanded, in the name of Jesus Christ, what was there to reveal its identity. I'm doing my Ed Warren voice.
I noticed that.
Sounded very much like my regular voice.
It did, but I wasn't going to break that to you.
But he said, I understood right at that point that what we were dealing with was not a ghost. This was no ordinary haunted house. So this is what he has said in interviews. So I talked about the local news. So you have Channel 5 news team, probably led by Wes Mantooth.
Yeah, that's a good broadcaster.
He is.
Yeah.
And his mom, Dorothy Mantooth, was a saint.
Well,
But they're covering the Warrens' investigation into the haunting at 112 Ocean Avenue. And this whole group would return on March 6th. So this time you've got Ed and Lorraine. You have the news team with their cameras. They brought a whole bunch of professional psychics. And many of the people involved in the investigation that night claimed to have witnessed or experienced something strange. You had a cameraman who said he experienced heart palpitations, shortness of breath. I mean, I that's me walking up the stairs to get water, but his might have been from something else. I don't know.
it might have been, yeah.
Apparently, there was some type of seance conducted by the psychics, and they made all kinds of claims after the fact. They talked about black shadows, figures that mysteriously appeared, and Lorraine was quoted as saying at this March 6th thing that they did, whatever is here is right from the bowels of the earth. It's able to move around at will. It doesn't have to stay here, but I think it's a resting place. So again, I'm not saying any of this is right, wrong, true. yet. Just laying out the facts so far.
A lot of spooky stuff.
A lot of spooky stuff.
Well, at first, just moving into the house was fine. It's a lovely house, and we enjoyed moving in. Within a week, Kathy's hand had been touched by something that we discussed and couldn't explain. It was just something unseen.
We also had hordes of flies that would appear within 2 rooms, and no matter how many times we would kill them, they would reappear.
It was more of a gelatin kind of substance that we thought the children had somehow mixed something up and spilled it around the house. The next time it happened, the kids were at school, and there was just no way to explain how it got there. The china itself turned black, and at first it was one bathroom, and then another, and then another, so that by the time the investigators got there, a number of them were still black.
The keyholes would ooze a black substance, which was of the same nature and appearance as that which was on the porcelain in the toilets. And when the investigative team came on March 6, 1976, the substance was still on the keyholes, and they were able to obtain samples of it.
We've been asked many times why we stayed so long. It's very hard to remember the exact emotions or the moment why you would make a decision or why not.
One of the things we're very happy with is 4 weeks ago, both of us were subjects of a polygraph test. It was given by Chris Gugas and Michael Rice, and we both passed with flying colors.
So that was a clip of Geroge and Kathy talking a little bit more about their experiences and going into some more detail. I mean, they talked about the toilet bowls going black.
And I liked how they talked about the slime being like a gelatin and not the green slime you see, or talked about, it's actually was just like a gelatin slime. And at first I thought the kids did it, but then they realized the kids didn't have anything to do with it because the kids were at school the second time. And the fact that they took a lie detector test.
Yeah, I think that part specifically is interesting. Now, I don't know how much stock I put into it because, number one, we don't know who administered it. We don't know the authenticity of it. Maybe I should say it that way.
Yeah, I find it interesting too.
If they really did pass a real lie detector. But the other thing, Gibbs, is I think we've heard, and it's the reason why lie detectors aren't admissible in most places anymore, because I don't know how accurate they are. I think they can be fooled.
I think I could pass one.
I think you could too. I think a lot of sociopaths could pass them.
And I could probably pass one.
Like I said, yeah.
Not because of that, or because I have certain ways.
You get your Waze?
I got my Waze app.
You get your Waze app?
I got my Waze app.
All right, so we wanted to bring on a special guest for this part. We're going to start talking about the books. We're going to start talking about the movies that come after The Haunting. And we wanted to bring on Mike Morford, my co-host on Criminology. Hey, Morf, how are you?
Hey, guys, what's going on?
Now we're doing good.
It's the myth, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend.
That's right.
That's what everybody says about Gibby.
Yeah, he's talking about himself.
Oh, okay.
But, one of the reasons, we wanted to have you on, Morph, but another reason is that we just had Gibby on, kind of doing a crossover, right? We just had Gibby on the very last episode of Criminology Season 1, where we wrapped up the Zodiac case. And we kind of did the same thing, right? We were talking about books, we were talking about movies, talking about pop culture. So it kind of made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it.
So when we're talking about books, there's been a lot of books written, but I think the main one to talk about is the Amityville Horror, written by Jay Anson.
Did you say the Amityville Horror?
I'm trying to say horror, but I don't think it's coming out very well.
The Amityville Horror.
That's another movie or another book.
Movie.
We call that a brothel.
I don't think it's coming out very well. I'm not putting enough emphasis on the but it was published in September of 1977. And I think both of you guys know I mark a lot of things as far as timeline in the 70s by the release of Star Wars. That's just how I marked 70s time. That's how I do it. To put it into context, Star Wars was released in the United States in May of 1977. So it came out about 4 months before Jay Anson's book. But did you guys know, because I found this out during some research, that Star Wars was not released in the United Kingdom until December of 77?
And why is that, Mike?
Hell, I don't know. It didn't.
It's a good movie.
Well, yeah, it was a great movie. It didn't get released in Japan until June of 78.
Wow.
Well, they probably took that long to dub it.
It took a year to dub it in Japanese.
Yeah.
What about the UK? They didn't have to dub it.
Yeah.
They got to do it in English over there.
That's right. They got to bring in some English actors and,
It had a ton of English actors in it.
Luke, I am your father.
That's another. He's been doing terrible accents all day.
Does he do an Amityville one? The New York, Long Island accent?
That's why we brought you on.
Yeah, that's why we brought you on,
I'm from South Jersey. I don't do the New York accent.
It all rolls,
Same thing.
Yeah. To us people in the Midwest, it sounds the same.
I just thought it was interesting. It has nothing to do with Amityville, but the UK had to wait 6 months to see Star Wars. The Japanese had to wait a full year.
Well,
I don't think that's right, man.
Why is that not right?
Because our friends in the
global.
UK had
we weren't
to wait.
global at the time. It was all about the USA.
I don't like it. Oh,
I haven't seen Star Wars since I was a kid, so.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I've got it on DVD. I just haven't watched it.
You haven't watched any of the new ones?
No. I'm not a big Star Wars fan.
How do I hang up this thing?
I know. You're going to disconnect me. I am a big horror movie fan, though, so I love the Amityville case. I love talking some 112 Ocean Avenue stuff. So
no, I knew you did, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on. I don't want you to get typecasted as just the Zodiac guy either.
Oh no, I do all kinds of horror stuff, and I'm into everything.
All right, so we got to get back to the book by Jay Anson, and it was really based on taped interviews with Geroge and Kathy Lutz. So really, to me, guys, the accuracy of the book comes down directly to the accuracy of the story of Geroge and Kathy. Now, we'll save the accuracy part for later, but I want to point that out. The guy is writing the book based off of their story.
So it's based on interpretation of what he's hearing from them.
And hopefully they were factual.
Yeah, I do think that he got a lot of crap over the years about the accuracy of the book. And I don't know exactly why that is, but even in, there was an article in Writer's Digest way back in the day, but it must have been a lot because he did an article, an interview, I should say, back in 79 where he was basically addressing all these people coming out and talking about the inconsistencies in the book. And he says, quote, "Yeah, I know that the research people say I've made mistakes. They say that on such and such a day when I said it rained, it didn't rain. So what? I am a perfectly normal human being, and sometimes I make mistakes." But I think it went a lot farther than just the fact of, on June 6th it rained when it didn't. There were just a lot of people that talked about the fact that, and that's the word, fact, right? He was presenting a lot of this stuff in the book as fact when people start to read it and they say, how can this be fact? How can this be nonfiction? Because it was labeled as nonfiction.
Yeah, and I think Jay Anson caught some flack over that too, because I think he, some of the stuff he wrote was not stuff that was known previously. And I think he sort of shrugged it off and said, I'm a writer. I'm here to write a good book.
So he's taking what Kathy and George are saying. My assumption is he's going to embellish it. He's got to make a captivating book, right? He's got to draw people in.
Yeah.
But he did. Yeah, I think he took a lot of shit for it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can go by just looking at somebody and hearing them talk, but seeing the two of them together talking, they seem real and legitimate. I don't know how you guys feel.
You talking about George and Kathy?
Yeah.
No, I think Gibbs and I have watched a lot of tape of them. We have some clips on the show. I think that, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds because we'll talk about the aftermath, but I think they were unified. Let's put it that way. I think they had a unified front, which to me means they either really experienced what they said they did or they made themselves believe that they did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about it. I mean, there are people that think they made the whole thing up, right? It's no secret.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it from the book deal, a lot of people say they did it just to get the book deal, but there's no guarantee they would have gotten a book deal. And I think they made $200,000 from the book. Jay Anson made millions from the book. So, who's to say that was their whole purpose, was to get a book deal?
And I thought about that too, because that is one of the things you hear. We run out of the house after 28 days. We tell our story. We're going to make a bunch of money off of it. Okay, maybe, but there's no guarantee. And
exactly.
You're going to give a house up to the bank, which they did, and take the chance that you're going to make it back. I don't know.
And I think they left with the clothes on their back, so I don't think they even took anything.
No, they did. Now, I did see one thing that said they went back for a yard sale, but I don't know if that was true or not.
Yeah, if that was me and I'm running out of that house because of what happened supposedly, I'm not going back there even to go in to get my stuff to do a yard sale. That's just me.
But the one thing is, the book was a hit.
Definitely.
I mean, it was very popular. And I think there were a lot of reasons why it was popular. Some of the research I read talked about the fact that you had the 70s, right? You had the gas crisis, you had inflation, you had all these things going on in the country, and this was like escapism.
So they had 45 hours of tape interview. I mean, that's a lot of interview time, 45 hours.
That is.
It's a lot of information.
Very detailed.
Very detailed, absolutely.
So let me ask you this. Does that lend credibility?
I don't know if it lends credibility, but I think I just find it fascinating that they had 45 hours of information to download. Now, I don't know if that's just him putting the tape recorder down on the coffee table and let's chat and,
right.
There's some warm up and then, some dead space.
Well, I'm thinking that it would be hard to make stuff up for 45 hours, maybe. I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Oh, I know. I think you're right. I think
harder.
And I think if you were making things up, it's just like when you talk to a kid, when you know they're lying. As longer you talk to them, the more that they stumble over what they've said.
Mm-hmm. That's why I talk to you for long periods and draw you out.
And I'm consistent all the way through. I know how to pass the lie detector test.
Now, I don't want anybody thinking that I actually believe, because I am talking about, okay, I think I'm just asking the question.
No, we haven't. Do we believe? Don't we believe? We're just saying, here's what we know.
Well, what we know is that the book spawned the movie, right? The movie, the Amityville Horror, I'm trying to emphasize it, was based off of Jay Anson's book. And the Amityville Horror movie premiered in 1979. It starred James Brolin. He played George. Margot Kidder played Kathy. And we talked about it. It's based on the book by Jay Anson. But the movie makers, as they often do, they took a bunch of liberties, I think, here. Gibby, Morf, we can talk about some of those.
I know that the flies, the Lutzes claim there were flies. But in the movie, the flies are attacking the priest and he's hearing voices. And I think that was one thing that wasn't accurate.
Yeah, well, it was definitely exaggerated because members of the family said that there were a lot of flies in the house, but nothing like what was shown in the film. And there was even an interview with George Lutz where he laughed about it, about how far they went overboard with the flies.
Yeah, I think he actually said that that movie now looks like a documentary compared to some of the stuff that's been put out in recent years.
Well, look, it's not that disturbing if you just got some flies, 10 flies flying around. You got hundreds of flies. That's disturbing. That gets people. It's a good movie.
Well, and I think that's a point, right? Yeah. It's a movie.
Yeah.
They have to make it something that somebody wants to watch. But go back to the book. People claim that he embellished. Then you take the movie based off the book, and they take it even farther.
Some of the details, like the blood running down the walls. I mean, even George Lutz himself said that was completely made up by the movie makers.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier where, he said it was like a slime, almost like a gelatin. It definitely wasn't blood. He described it as like a gelatinous slime.
Gelatinous.
That's my word for today, Gibbs.
Yeah.
Gelatinous.
But
it wasn't blood. I mean, that was something that the movie makers put in because that's more over the top and it's scarier.
Well, sure. They got to sell tickets at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to a haunted house movie. You got to be scared during the movie. So,
And I will admit, back in the day, I mean, of course, this movie came out when I was 6 years old. I don't think I saw it then. But seeing it as a kid sometime later, probably on HBO, I wasn't supposed to be watching it. It scared the ever-living shit out of me.
You wet yourself, didn't you?
I wet myself.
You still wet yourself.
I might have done that before the movie, but during the movie, I probably really did. It really was scary. Now, there were a lot of movies back then that I thought were scary. Now, if I watched it today, I'd probably laugh.
I was the kid that was allowed to go to these movies when I was, 7, 8 years old, which is how old I was when this came out. And my parents, I don't know if they took me there just to mess around with me and get me to, shit my pants. But I mean,
but you did,
you're scared when you're a kid and you see that stuff. And I remember being scared, but I loved the movie even though I was scared.
Yeah, no, I actually liked the movie.
Does the Conjuring pull into this?
The what?
The Conjuring? Conjuring. I don't.
You got to keep
the Conjuring.
The Conjuring?
Yeah.
How about The Conjuring?
And then you have that.
The Conjuring.
Conjuring.
I thought he was talking about conjoined twins or something.
It's
At first.
The Conjuring.
Yeah, The Conjuring. Are you conjuring against me?
Oh, for the love of Pete.
You conjuring against him? So is The Conjuring related to this?
I don't know. Have you seen it?
No, I don't watch that.
The Conjuring is in the fact that it's related to the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who also investigated, 112 Ocean Avenue, the Amityville house.
So that's the tie-in?
Yeah, that would definitely be a tie-in.
We talked about the original Amityville Horror, and then you had Amityville 2, The Possession. And Morf, tell us about that one. I think you saw that one.
So Amityville 2, The Possession is a prequel, and the family that's living there before the Lutz family moved in, the oldest son, who essentially is Defeo, Ronnie Defeo, is getting some weird things going on with him, just some strange things, and then he starts to hear voices playing through his Walkman, and it's telling him to kill his family. And there's the same amount of brothers and sisters as parents, and it's based on the Defeo family, so it's set as a prequel basically to the Lutz film.
So then you had Amityville 3D that came out in 83. So again, Amityville 2 comes out in 82. The very next year they come out in 83 with Amityville 3D. I didn't see that one. So
I did it. It was bad.
Yeah. And then that's when there was a whole spate, of they're probably B movies, right? It's not until 2005 that they actually remake Amityville Horror, and that's the one with Ryan Reynolds. Melissa George, I think, played Kathy. Ryan Reynolds played George, which was kind of strange because he didn't look anything like George. But I saw that one. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't great. And I actually like Ryan Reynolds. Not in the way that Gibby does, but I like him as an actor.
Easy now.
Yeah, I saw that too. And, I thought it was an okay movie just to watch, but it definitely was, I'm not a fan of remakes. So for me, I'm a little bit impartial to that. But
and then, they actually have, I don't know if it's out or coming out later this year, they got another one called Amityville The Awakening.
Yeah, that's definitely, it looks like another B one.
Oh, it actually came out earlier this month.
On DVD already?
It probably is. It's only made $7.2 million, so. It got 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, so if that tells you anything.
But they might have only made it for $2 million, so for them, that's a win.
That is true. You don't know that.
Is Amityville Horror the only one that's supposed to be based off a true story?
And Amityville 2 is loosely based, largely based on the Defeo murders.
It's actually probably more based on a true story than Amityville Horror.
Okay.
If you think about it. I mean, it depends on whether you believe Geroge and Kathy Lutz, but there's no doubt that the Defeo murders actually happened. We know that. So rounding out or kind of, finalizing the movie talk, back to the original Amityville Horror. The one thing we didn't talk about was the toilets. There was a lot of, I guess you'd call them iconic scenes, and one of them was this black tar-like substance or something that was overflowing out of the toilets. Well, we know that didn't happen. Now, what George Lutz did say is that the toilets, like the porcelain part, started to turn black.
And I just don't know how that would happen. I think
Well,
you can turn a toilet black.
I was going to say, a lot of Chipotle, maybe.
Yeah, you might be able to do that.
That'll
you have that special power.
He also said that the china that they had started turning black.
So interesting. So anything porcelain, china, and stuff like that, porous stuff
Started turning black.
Yeah.
The one other thing that I was going to talk about was, in that movie, there's a scene where the front door kind of explodes. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
It kind of bows outward and then explodes. Well, that didn't happen either. So, but again, we talked about it. You gotta.
So does the house look evil from the front?
Not from the front. It's the side, actually. The way it's laid, it sits sideways, but it's really the side. It might be the front towards the thing, but it's really the side of the house.
All right, so just one factoid about the original Amityville Horror. It was filmed in Tom's River, pretty close to where I live, and I've driven by that house a couple times. It's pretty cool. But what they actually did for the movie was they actually took the house off the foundation and turned it around to sit on the water the right way to match up with the way the real house did, which is pretty cool fact.
Yeah, so somebody let them do that.
Yeah, I guess they got paid enough
They must have paid them quite a bit of money. The other thing that I believe they did is so that I guess you'd call it the side of the house, right? That's the iconic part of the house. That's the one with the windows up top that kind of look like eyes, and really the whole side of it kind of to me looks like a face almost. But the house that they used didn't quite look like that, so they put some extra stuff on the exterior to make it look more like the real Amityville house.
Yeah, and I heard the owners of that house, I guess they had those original windows and they were trying to sell them for about $50,000.
It wouldn't surprise me if somebody would buy it.
If you got the money, if you're a baller like Gibby.
All right, Morf, we really appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Sure do, man.
Always love your movie knowledge for sure, mixed in with Gibby's encyclopedic type movie knowledge.
And also my knowledge of documentaries.
So, Morf, appreciate it, buddy.
I'm glad to be on. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, man.
Thanks,
We'll
man.
talk to you.
I'll see you guys.
All right, Gibbs. So this leads us into talking about kind of the aftermath, right? The book's out, the movie's out. Tons of interest in the story of the Amityville horror, haunting, all of that. And what happens is George and Kathy kind of become famous or infamous, however you want to look at it. But this is when you have a lot of people starting to talk about, starting to wonder, is this thing real or did they put it on? And I think Morf talked about it a little bit, or we talked about it with Morf. Was this a hoax that they put on hoping to cash in on it?
Well, if they did, they didn't do it very well because they could have made a whole lot of money if they planned it out right.
I know George said in an interview that they made about $300,000 total from everything related to what happened. So that would be from the book and whatever money they got from the movie and anything else. Now,
after taxes, maybe.
Well, I don't know. He didn't say. I'm not his accountant, so I don't know. But that's no small amount of change.
Not back then.
So I don't know. Convert that
now.
for me. People.
Back then? To now?
To now, yeah.
300 grand back in 1978?
79.
Yeah.
Now, some of that he probably made after, but.
Yeah, like 1.2.
All right. So it's good money.
But put it in .com stuff and pulled it out at the right time.
Well, that's true.
It could be worth a whole lot more.
If you got a hold of it and did your Warren Buffett thing with it.
That's right.
It should be 7, 8, 9, 10 million. We don't even know.
We don't know. But if it was today and someone came to you and that same, I think about 1.2.
So the question is that worth it? Because they went through a lot of shit.
Well, I think a lot of people do a lot of stuff for $1 million.
Yeah, that's true. A lot less, right? or
a lot less.
They would go through a lot more than what they went through.
Yeah.
They did get a lot of television coverage, but then they had a lot of people coming out against them saying it's a hoax. You made all this up. I don't know. I'd really have to think about that. What amount of money would I be willing to take to have my family go through that amount of scrutiny?
It'd be easier for me to do the indecent proposal of myself.
I am really glad you clarified that because your wife would not be happy.
No, I'd sell myself for $1 million.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
You would never get that, but
No.
I thought you were going to say your wife, and she would not be happy about
I
it.
set my goal high, $1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah, hopefully that'll land somewhere in between.
I'm asking for $1 million, but I'll take $20.
Yeah, I think I'm a bargain for 20, man.
Now, the thing about George and Kathy, though, they weren't shy. I mean, they did all the shows. You know, they were on Good Morning America. They were on Merv Griffin.
So they enjoy the fame.
Why else would you do it?
Well, yeah, maybe in hopes that it would generate some income somehow.
That, and I think maybe a mix of they're trying to defend themselves against all these attackers was maybe some of it.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I think about it today with social media, iPhones. What would that have been like back then? If we had that technology, you know, if you're living in a house and this shit is happening to you, you grab your iPhone, you start recording.
Right.
Now, maybe whatever's going on in that house doesn't let electronics work. Because that's the story I would put.
Well,
if it really wasn't happening and they were making it up, I'd be saying, oh yeah, the electronics wouldn't work. But even on the aftermath, if this was today's world with all social media, they could have cleaned up. They could have made millions, man.
Oh, they could have done an Instagram Live of the slime, and
I mean, they'd just be
Facebook Live.
Yeah, people eat that stuff up.
Had their own YouTube channel.
I mean, look, it's how many years has it been? 40-some years?
40, yeah.
People still talk. We're talking about it. People are talking about it. They're making more movies about it, you know?
I mean, it really was famous. It's known the world over. So in 79, you know, we talked about them going on the shows. George goes on the Merv Griffin show, and he reveals a photograph that is creepy as hell. I don't know how else to describe it. In this photograph, and Gibbs, I know you've seen it too, it looks like a little kid peeking like around through a doorway and just unbelievably white eyes. So George would say that the photo had been taken by the Warrens' paranormal investigative team back in 76 when they went in to do that investigation. Now, some people think it's a demon. Some people think it's a ghost of one of the younger Defeo children. There's been people that say that it kind of looks like, I can't remember who it was, John or Mark, one of them.
I think the older one.
There's other people that believe that it was completely staged and that the white eyes were some type of camera trick. Because you have to figure, Gibbs, you can make that happen, right?
Yeah.
You could fake that.
You could do that.
But either way, it's a creepy picture. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go out there and take a look at it. It's kind of like that 3 Men and the Baby picture. You ever see that, Gibbs?
I think I remember that.
Where you had to pause it just at the right spot, and you could see like a...
Walking through or something?
There's like a kid holding a gun or something. And the story was that this kid had killed himself, but I think it came out that it was some kind of cardboard prop that was going to... I don't remember what the story was, but it freaked me out back in the day. But there's all kinds of people that come out. You had an attorney for Defeo that came out and said that he was involved in hatching the scheme with George and Kathy. He said, you know, they went through a couple of bottles of wine one night, talked about how they could capitalize on the murders. This guy actually came out and talked about it. And then in 1979, there was this show, and I don't know if you remember it, Gibbs. It was called In Search Of, and it was hosted by Spock, Leonard Nimoy. It was a great show. They did all kinds of really cool episodes.
The Vulcan?
Yeah, the Vulcan. They did an episode on this case, and on the show, they had a guy on there who claimed he was the real Amityville priest, the guy that actually had went into the home to do the blessing, to bless the house. Now, they never showed his face. They kept him in the shadows. But if the guy was real, and there's been some conjecture about whether it really was him or not, but he said that he heard voices telling him to get out. He felt like he was slapped in the face. And he even talked about how he developed these blisters on his hands after he'd been there.
I was blessing the sewing room. It was cold. It was really cold in there. And I thought, gee, this is peculiar. Because it was a lovely day out. And it was winter, yes, but it didn't account for that kind of coldness. I also was sprinkling holy water. And I heard a rather deep voice behind me say, "Get out." It seemed so directed toward me that I was really quite startled. I felt a slap at one point on the face. I felt somebody slap me, and there was nobody there.
Strange events also affected the priest who blessed the house. He discovered blisters were festering on his hands.
I went to the doctor for it, yes. And he couldn't explain it. He thought it might be caused by anxiety, and of course that's feasible. But I don't think I'm given over to psychosomatic responses.
But again, just like everything else surrounding this mystery of the haunting, this priest would come under fire. His real name would come out, and it would be pointed out that over the years, he'd made some claims that contradicted themselves. And at one point, Gibbs, he's forced to testify in a trial involving one of the many lawsuits that George Lutz would be into over the years. And it would be a bunch.
I'm just trying to think. The money he had to spend for these lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been cheap, but I think for the most part, he was the one causing the lawsuits. He was suing people for, making it seem like he was, that it was a hoax, or I don't know. There's like 14 different lawsuits altogether, I think. But
you still got to spend money, even if you're bringing this suit,
yeah.
And if you don't win, wow, you're out that, unless he's doing pro se. But if he's saying that in the time that he did all this, they made $300,000 for the span of this.
That would go pretty quick, right?
It would go quick. So it's like, why would you even put the effort suing these folks? Maybe the first time, but if you don't win, why would you keep continuing?
Well, and he would say in interviews that it wasn't about the money. It was about protecting his family and the validity of the story. So he was suing people that were saying, the story's not real. And then you have the Red Room. This was portrayed in the movie as kind of the gateway to hell and as this unbelievably spooky place. And that's the way that the Lutzes kind of talked about it too, that it was spooky. There was something going on there. Now, they didn't say it was the gateway to hell, but that's the way they made it seem in the movie. Right. And I don't know if you remember this show, Gibbs. It was called That's Incredible. This was early 80s stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a great show. I used to watch it all the time. But on one episode, they had a woman on there that was friends with Allison Defeo, one of the murdered Defeo girls. And she would say, this room wasn't secret at all. She'd been in the room. She played in the room. This is where the Defeos stored all their toys.
My name is Patty Camarado. I was friends with Allison Defeo, the girl who was murdered with the rest of her family here in 1974. This I'm going to show you is the mysterious Red Room that's so noted for in the book. This door, which they say was never here, was here, is here, always will be here, I suppose. This is the Red Room. Nothing more than a storage area where Allison and her brothers and I used to keep toys. Just red, There was never any feeling of spirit presence or ghosts or any sort of thing like that. It was just a play area. Used to keep toys. Nothing more than that.
So in the video, she's actually in the room. You can see it.
She's in the Red Room?
She's in the Red Room.
Red Drum?
Red Drum. Red Drum. Yeah, she's in the room, and she sure as hell is not scared to be in there. The house sat vacant for 14 months after the Lutzes left. And a family came in by the name of the Cromartys. They bought the house. And I think they bought it for like $50,000. I mean, they really got a good deal on it. But after they bought the house, you have to think, this is when the book comes out. Then the movie comes out. They got people all the time wanting to see the house.
That would be annoying.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about drunk people standing outside their house at 2, 3 in the morning shouting for Jody, wanting Jody to come out.
Shapeshifter.
Yeah, the pig.
Yeah.
But the big thing to take away from the Cromartys is, they lived there for a number of years. They never saw one thing.
No issue.
Never experienced anything unusual.
Now, but would you say that you did? If you ever wanted to try to sell it? Or is there a market for people? I think there might be today. I think there's some people that actually would want to maybe live there, knowing if it was actually true. There's some people that like that kind of stuff.
Well, okay, so I get your take on it. Would they want to say it, but would they live there for the number of years that they did and go through it? I doubt it.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I've had uncles and aunts of mine who have played in this house as children. Played in this house myself as a child. And there's no doubt about the tragedy that took place. To be very honest, the reason we bought the house at the time was it was a good buy.
And because we loved the house. It is a beautiful house. And we really felt that once we moved in, we changed the number, we repainted it, and we made it a beautiful part of the community again. And we really thought everything would just go away. We never dreamt what would take place here. It was such a pleasant scene inside here. And outside, it was so insane. It was right after the book had come out. People all fighting to have their picture taken in front of the house. And here we were trying to have a lovely, quiet Sunday afternoon together. And this insanity was out there. When they came, they literally, on Christmas Eve, attacked the house. And 3 cars. One car drove all over the front lawn. Another one watched for the police. And the other group, all men, about 20 to 25, I guess. The other groups just stood out on the front porch and urinated all over it on Christmas Eve. It's a very simple thing to write to the National Weather Bureau down in Washington and ask for the weather on the dates that coincide with the book. And they will see for themselves that none of the weather coincides. Not one day, not one snowflake, not one raindrop. As far as the priest goes, he testified in federal court in Brooklyn in October, I think it was,
Right.
that he had only come to this house once to bless it. As far as the rest of the book goes, none of it was true. He did not have any of the afflictions on his hands and the sores and the stench and anything that was mentioned either in the book or in the movie. None of that was true, and this is under oath in federal court.
We just hope that sooner or later we're going to knock a complete hole in this charade that's been created and hope that we can just get back to living a normal life again, not have to worry about when we come home at night that there are 30 people in the yard, that maybe we'll have to call the police again, give them a break, and give the neighbors a break.
Don't put it out with your boots on, Ted. So that was the Cromarties, and they said some interesting stuff, Gibbs, in that interview.
They really did.
I mean, you get a sense of what they went through after the book came out, after the movie. But what I really took away from that was kind of some of the stuff that we've already talked about. You know, she was basically saying you can get the weather information and tell that none of it coincides with the book. I kind of mentioned it a little bit about the priest having to testify, and she mentioned it too. And it goes against what maybe he said on the In Search Of show, and definitely goes against what was in the book and in the movie. But even Butch Defeo would weigh in on the Amityville haunting.
I lived in that house all those years. I've never saw anything really peculiar or strange. Never once.
Except for the time I murdered my whole family.
Yeah, besides that one time.
But other than that, I never saw one strange thing in that house.
And when the house told me to do it.
That's true. So I think, Gibbs, in wrapping up, I wanted to just talk a little bit about Geroge and Kathy. Because they end up moving to San Diego, where they reportedly sold Amway products for a while, trying to make some money. Then they later moved to Arizona. Now, Kathy and Geroge would divorce in the late 1980s, but it was reported that they remained friends till they died. Kathy died in 2004 from emphysema. She was only 57 years old. And then Geroge died 2 years later in 2006. He was only 59. So they did die really young.
So is there conspiracy theorists that think it's their failing marriage and deaths are related to something with the house?
I'm sure there are people that think that.
They are now.
Now, Geroge had been suffering from heart disease. Prior to his death, he was living in Vegas. So, I mean, I think he'd gone on with his life, but
sounds like it.
It talked about that he would actually show up every now and then at some of those paranormal conferences, and he would talk about Amityville. So what do you think?
I don't know.
I think it's one of those ones that's really tough. It's tough for me to believe just because I've never experienced anything remotely of what you would call like paranormal activity or anything like that.
I think you would have to believe that something like that could occur in a specific time frame and never occur again in the same area. So do you believe that Defeo did what he did based on something in that house telling him to do it, and then when the other couple moved in, they experienced residual effects of that, and then once they moved out for whatever reason,
the bad spirits were gone,
moved on,
and every other owner after that has
never had a problem.
Never had a problem.
Or if they did, they didn't want to admit to it, and because of the fact that they would maybe never be able to get their money back out.
Well, so I think that's the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, Butch Defeo was lying to try to save his ass, right? He had to come up with something to back up his insanity plea.
Sure.
And that was, I was hearing voices.
Right, which is probably the top thing people say when they try to act like they're insane.
Right. That is all over the news.
Yep.
These people know that. They've seen it. This house comes up for sale.
Opportunist.
And they say, hey, here's what we can do. And we're going to make it look like we were haunted out of this house. Then we're going to.
That's really long.
It's a long con.
That's a high risk, right?
It's a high risk, long con.
Yeah. I just don't. I think maybe the opportunist part came in as we don't believe that shit. Ain't no way. He killed his family. It had nothing to do with. They buy it, say it's a good deal. Why would we want to buy this big house for that dollar amount on the water? What a great deal. Boathouse. Come on. And then they get in there and maybe freaky shit starts to happen, but maybe they embellish what happened, right? And, maybe they hear some knocking on the wall, but that turns into be something much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Maybe they have some dew. The walls sweat a little bit with some dew, and it's instead of it being dew, it's gelatinous slime, something, right?
Yeah, I don't know. There's different ways of looking at it, because the other thing, I don't think we talked about this, but apparently they put quite a bit of money down. Or they put some money down.
Yeah.
She, I think, had a house. Kathy had a house. George had a house. So they sold their houses after they got married, and they were going to buy this one house. And I think they put some money down.
Well, back then you had to put real money down.
Well, yeah, 20% at least, right?
Yeah. Have to.
So they would have lost that money when they let the bank foreclose on them.
Right.
They're not getting that back. So that's a big, like you said, that's a big risk. That's a big chance to take.
And some people see things that other people don't, right? Some people can see things that, it's said that some people can see things that all the time we've been in this studio, you never mentioned anything about the person standing next to you.
No, never.
I just figure it's somebody in your family and it just doesn't talk.
Yeah.
But, I don't say, I just let it go.
Yeah. It's just something we don't talk about here.
Yeah. I just always thought it was weird they wear the same clothes day in and day out.
But to that point, there's people that can make themselves believe that maybe they're seeing something too.
Oh, I think so.
And can make other people believe that what they're experiencing is more than what it really is.
What kid growing up at one point in their life didn't like to go down in the basement by themselves?
Yeah, sometimes I still don't as an adult.
Because you probably don't. Because they hear something, some weird noise, or they think they see something move. And they just don't want to be down there. And they run back up the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
So, your imagination can do some good damage for sure.
I would guess, Gibbs, I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that a lot of people, I may even say the majority, more than most, more than 50% would think that this never happened.
So, look at this one. I don't know. I don't know.
It's like you're playing the banjo with your mouth.
Kind of did sound like
delivering. It might be time to wrap this one up.
It might be.
Brother.
It went the wrong direction real fast there. So I guess my opinion is I wouldn't spend the night in the place.
No, I wouldn't either, but that's because I don't like to travel. But
so if you could be there, you would spend the night in the place? If you were there, you would spend the night?
No. I err on the side of caution.
Yeah, you don't.
But that doesn't mean I believe in it. Let's put it that way. But I don't take any unnecessary
risks. So you wouldn't go sleep in the red room?
No, if somebody was going to pay me $1 million, I'd sleep there.
You go sleep in the red room?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure. But I'm not going to do it just for shits and giggles.
You're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
All right.
I like to hedge my bets.
Well, you got to hedge something. Hedge your hedges.
So as we wrap up, I just want to kind of talk about the house full circle as it is now.
There is one home in particular that can offer something no other house can.
It's hard to believe this picturesque home was once the basis for a horror film. It's since been renovated, and now it's for sale. It's got 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and views of the water. But the real estate listing for this beautiful Dutch colonial on Ocean Avenue also boasts its, quote, interesting history. That's right, it's the Amityville Horror House, now in the market for more than $1 million. Now, no one answered the door here at the home, and we couldn't find any neighbors to talk to us on camera either, but they do tell us they think the hoopla surrounding this house is absolutely out of control, and they say it's certainly not haunted. And while the home's signature quarter circle windows have been removed and plenty of other families have lived here without incident, some say they'd still be squeamish about moving in. So will this house sell? Well, the realtor that we spoke to says it all depends on how long it takes to find the right buyer.
So many people have lived there. What does that tell you? People aren't staying.
But they've stayed for years and years.
But they're not staying.
But the interesting thing is your money conversion, as I hinted, was pretty accurate.
It's getting up there, huh?
Because this house sold in 2010 for $950,000.
You want Gibby as your investment advisor? 8675309.
The bad news is it sold in February of this year for $605,000.
Scratch that. Just Gibby as your financial advisor.
So I've taken some lumps on real estate, but that's a big chunk.
Especially, I mean, it's not a bad market the last few years.
No, and that's what's strange, right? You would have thought it would have gone up since 2010. All right, Gibbs, let's play some voicemails.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get off the creepy shit.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. This is Jamie calling from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Just wanted to tell you I really enjoy all the podcasts, the true crime all the time, true crime all the time, unsolved, criminology, if you're not listening to all 3 of these, TikTok. Listen, I was actually at CrimeCon 2017, the inaugural, and I'm kicking myself for not coming up and saying hello to you guys. It was, I don't know if intimidating is the right word, a little overwhelming to look down Podcast Row and think, they're all here. They're really all here. But next year, 2018 is already bought and paid for. I am determined to come up and say hello to you guys. But I just really wanted to thank you very much for what you do. I think it's not only important to understand what happened in these crimes, but more importantly, these victims were people and they were somebody. So it's always good to focus back on that sometime during the podcast, and you do a great job of that. So again, thanks so much, and look forward to meeting you again in 2018. You guys have a fabulous week. Thank you. Bye.
Love that voicemail.
Yeah, it's interesting. She was intimidated. I mean, we were intimidated being on Podcast Row
to meet fans.
It was amazing, and we heard that while we were there. But yeah, next time, come on up. We're just like you.
Yeah, but how weird is it for somebody to say they're nervous to meet us?
Yeah,
most people in real life, they don't want to meet us.
Yeah, they stay, especially from Mike. Man, they walk. They like go. they cross the street.
Kind of plague or something.
Yeah, they cross the street when they see you, man.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. My name is Laura, and I live in Bath, Pennsylvania. I just had an idea for a podcast. I first moved to Allentown, which is a few minutes away from Bath here, back in 1993. And I remember there was a lot of talk about a serial rapist who terrorized Allentown for a little bit. I remember being a little kid and terrified. Later they found out who it was, Harvey Robinson. And I just thought that would be something interesting to cover. Anyway, love the show. Listen almost every day. I hope you have a great day and keep your own time ticking.
Thank you so much for the voicemail, Laura. We appreciate it. We'll definitely look into that case, Gibbs.
Yeah, Allentown, man. I know earlier I talked to you that you probably break out in the song, and then I was also thinking, was that what the movie Tom Hanks, not Tom Hanks, but Tom Cruise was in, where he played like the football player.
All the Right Moves?
Yeah. Was that Allentown, or that movie you really love, Flashdance? Was that Allentown?
Yeah, I don't know. I know All the Right Moves, I think, was Pennsylvania for sure. I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's a good story, though.
It is a good story.
It's a way to move the podcast along.
Well, just it's the way my brain works.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Gibby. This is Rosie. I am from Northern Ireland, but living in Sydney. I'm sat on my balcony. It's about 10 a.m. and I've just finished listening to the Richard Chase podcast and couldn't help but think how horrific it was. So I've come out onto the balcony to listen to the bird song and try and shake it off. Guys, what you do is amazing. You are my ultimate and favorite podcast. I love everything that you do, and I love the way that you don't shy away from some of the really horrific stuff that goes on in some of the cases that you look at. However, I am sometimes worried for you both that perhaps you experience something called vicarious trauma. And it's a trauma by proxy that you can experience when you've been listening to horrific events and stories that some other people have to endure. I wanted to just make sure that you guys know about vicarious trauma and that you guys engage all the time with self-care. I want to make sure that you look after each other and that you look after yourselves and that you do things that are fun in an attempt to work as an antidote to some of the podcasts and the horrors that you go through when you're researching them. I'm sure it's really important that you look after yourself because that is how you stay safe and how you keep your own time ticking. Thanks for everything, guys. You absolutely rock.
Oh, great voicemail, and she cares about us, Gibbs.
It's nice, man.
I'm touched. I really am.
Seriously, yeah.
She brings up a lot of good points. I mean, Richard Chase, for sure, was brutal, no doubt about it. There was some stuff we actually left out of that one, and that's not something we normally do. That's how brutal it was. And the pictures, oh my God.
Yeah, that was...
Don't look at the pictures.
Don't do that. I know some people already have and mentioned that they wish they didn't.
Even though we said, don't look at the pictures.
It's like when you tell somebody, kid, don't do that.
Yeah.
They go ahead and they got to go do it.
But I think we try to balance it, right? We try to get away for a few days. That's where we talked about watching comedies and things like that. So,
well, that's why when we even do these stories, we have a little bit of humor. Not a lot. But
have to have some.
Yeah, otherwise I don't know if I'd be able to sit here and tell our stories.
Yep. Nope. I think that's why we do it. We try to balance it out. Not too much. Hopefully it's the right amount. We don't go overboard. It's a fine line. It's a fine line to walk. All right, everyone. That is it for the Amityville saga.
Happy freaking Halloween.
Exactly. I hope everyone has a great Halloween. Stay safe. Make sure your kids are safe. I got Gibbs is going to dress up as Tootie from The Facts of Life. At least that's what he says. I don't know why, but that's the character that he's picked this year.
I was going to do Wonder Woman, but...
Wonder Woman would be good for you.
Yeah, I got the figure for it.
Make sure you get the husky one, though. There's a husky version.
Now.
Of the Wonder Woman. I'm not going to stop with the husky, man.
You're just going to keep riding with it, huh?
Yeah. Just for this, no more after this episode.
So you make fun of my huskiness, my dyslexia.
Beefy. You're beefy. I did not make fun of that. Stop saying that.
Did you just call me beefy?
Yeah. Beefy.
Careful there, man.
Beefy.
Beefy. Next thing you get beefy, hunky.
You got to stop saying I made fun of that because I did not make fun of that.
Why do you have flashcards
You're
here?
always trying to turn people
What's the
against
flashcards for? What are you trying to teach me?
All right, everyone. That's it. Another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
So, dude, you really don't see the person that's been standing by you all this time?
No. I thought you were just shitting.
No,
I thought you were just...
don't see that?
No.
Dude, it's like since the first time I've been over here. It's almost been a year now. You don't see the silhouette or anything.
No, I'm down here every night. This is where I do all my research.
Have your kids ever seen it?
No, nobody's ever said anything.
Okay, that's a little freaky, man.
You might want to get yourself checked out.
I don't think I need to be checked out.
Why would I need to? I'm not the one seeing it.
It's hanging out here with you.
It's not bothering me.
Yeah, I'm just, now you know about it.
All right, man.
So.
All right, good episode.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Sure.